In the early 1980s, a daring crime rocked the Netherlands, an audacious kidnapping that not only shocked the world, but would go down as one of the most elaborate heists in European history. It all started with a single, life-changing moment: the abduction of Freddy Heineken, the heir to the Heineken brewery empire, and his driver, Abduction. On the 9th of November, 1983, Freddy Heineken and his driver were abducted in broad daylight, sparking a nationwide manhunt. But what followed would become a masterclass in crime, one that the police would struggle to unravel for days. This is the story of the Heineken kidnapping, a tale of brilliant planning, high-stakes negotiation, and betrayal that no one saw coming. Before we dive into the kidnapping itself, let's take a moment to introduce the gang behind one of the most audacious heists in history. This wasn't just a random group of criminals, this was a carefully selected team, each member chosen for their unique skills, knowledge, and roles within the operation. Though the gang would eventually become 5 men, the key players were all longtime friends, bound by a shared desire for wealth, power, and the thrill of the crime. First, we have Cor van Hout, the mastermind of the Heineken kidnapping. In the criminal world, he's known as Flip, or Flipper, a nickname he earned as a child for his obsession with pinball machines. Van Hout was 26 years old at the time, a former soldier turned criminal with a knack for orchestrating complex operations. He was a horse gambler and real estate owner in Amsterdam, living a double life with the money he made from both legal and illegal ventures. It was Cor who came up with the idea to kidnap the Heineken heir, Fred Heineken, and demand an astronomical ransom. Next to Cor was his right-hand man, Willem Holleder, a muscular figure with a reputation for his unyielding loyalty and tough demeanor. Nicknamed the Nose, for reasons that remain unclear, Holleder was 25 years old and an essential part of the crew. While Cor was the mastermind, Holleder was the enforcer, the one who kept the other members in line and helped execute the plan with precision. He had a keen understanding of human nature, and was especially skilled in handling the delicate negotiations that came with a ransom kidnapping. Franz Meyer, one of Cor's oldest and most trusted friends. Meyer, who was 30 years old, had the nickname the Professor, not because of academic prowess, but because he had an analytical mind and nothing ever slipped past him. He was the strategist, the one who helped plan the operation down to the smallest detail. His knowledge of criminal tactics and experience with heists made him an invaluable asset to the team. The fourth member to eventually join the team, although he was not present during the initial planning, was Jan Boelaert, known as the Cat. Jan, at 31 years old, was the oldest of the group and extremely handy with tools, especially when it came to the mechanics of their vehicles and the logistics of the crime. His nickname came from his tendency to tilt his head when listening, a small but memorable habit. Though not present during the earliest stages, Boelaert was crucial in executing the more hands-on aspects of the kidnapping. Finally, there was Martin Urkamps, Cor's younger half-brother. The youngest member of the gang, Martin, was often called Brakes due to his slower, more cautious nature in some situations. Though he wasn't the sharpest criminal mastermind, Brakes had a special skill. He was an expert thief, able to steal anything without leaving a trace. His involvement in the operation wasn't as prominent as the others, but he was instrumental in certain key moments, including securing equipment and helping the gang move around undetected. Together, these 5 men formed the perfect team. Each brought something unique to the table, from Cor's strategic genius and Holleder's muscle, to Meyer's intellect, Boelaert's tool skills, and Urkamp's ability to handle the practicalities of theft. They were united by one goal: to execute the perfect heist. And while each man had his own quirks, they shared a deep loyalty to one another, making them a formidable force. But as we'll see, even the most carefully planned crimes have their flaws, and this one was no exception. Their bond would be tested, and the fallout would change everything for them. The kidnappers were no amateurs. Led by the mastermind Cor van Hout, a group of highly skilled criminals set their sights on one goal: wealth. Their target was Fred Heineken, the CEO of the Heineken brewery. Van Hout had meticulously researched who to kidnap, ultimately choosing Heineken not just for his fortune, but for the deep-seated motives tied to his family's legacy. They knew exactly how to move, how to plan, and how to avoid getting caught. They had their escape routes planned, their disguises ready, and even used misdirection to confuse the police. The plan was a work of art. From stolen cars to false clues, every detail was calculated to throw the investigators off track. The kidnapping itself was executed with military precision. They intercepted Heineken and his driver outside Heineken's office in Amsterdam, forcibly took them, and hid them away in a remote industrial shed. The entire process was over within 35 minutes. This rapid operation was part of their strategy, keeping the risk low by minimizing the time between abduction and the transfer to a safe location. Afterwards, the kidnappers sent a letter demanding millions in ransom. They were very specific in their instructions, from the denominations and origins of the money to how the police should signal their compliance. The kidnappers, led by Kor, were well versed in the art of negotiation. They had researched other famous kidnappings, analyzing the failures and successes of each case to prepare for every possible scenario. One of the key tactics employed by the kidnappers was misdirection. For example, they planted a bag of Uzi submachine guns and a pair of broken glasses at the scene of the abduction, knowing that the police would focus on these seemingly significant pieces of evidence. This was all part of the plan to mislead the authorities into thinking they were dealing with an organized and heavily armed gang, possibly from outside the country, rather than a group of well-prepared Dutch criminals. The police, initially thrown off by the obvious clues, chased leads that took them in the wrong direction. They were convinced they were dealing with a ruthless German crime syndicate, but Cor van Hout had already outsmarted them. This was a carefully calculated move to waste valuable time. As the days passed, the kidnappers initiated contact with the authorities. They avoided direct communication, instead using a series of taped ransom demands played through random telephone booths, forcing the police into public newspaper responses. They were no longer just kidnappers, they were expert negotiators. Then came the real challenge: moving the ransom money. The kidnappers had calculated the weight and logistics of carrying over 35 million guilders, equivalent to millions today. They needed to ensure the money would not only be delivered, but hidden without a trace. They had 3 distinct plans in place for the handoff. 1. A small boat, using a rope to pull the ransom across a waterway. 2. A vacuum tube system, copying a local store's delivery setup. 3. A houseboat, using a secret tunnel to get to the water unnoticed. Each of these plans was designed to keep the police at bay while they made the exchange. But there was one final twist: the handoff would not be as simple as just dropping off the money. On November 15th, the police received another set of instructions. This time, they were told to drive around in circles across the Netherlands, stopping at various locations to pick up new notes with fresh directions. This created a scavenger hunt that had the police racing all over the country, unable to predict the next move. They were chasing shadows. The final drop-off occurred at an overpass. The officers, weary after hours of chasing, followed the instructions precisely, only to realize they had been led on a wild goose chase. The money was transferred in plain sight, but the kidnappers were always one step ahead, hiding in plain view, waiting for the right moment to escape. Despite their flawless execution, the kidnappers made one critical mistake. They were tipped off. On November 16th, the police received a letter. It was item 547. This anonymous tip named the criminals involved Cor van Hout, Jan Boulaar, and Frans Meyer. It was a devastating blow to the kidnappers, an inside leak that would eventually lead to their capture. The police were quick to act. They arrested Jan Boulaar and Martin Erkamps within days, and Frans Meyer turned himself in after burning through millions of stolen guilders in a manic frenzy. Meyer's subsequent escape to Paraguay only delayed his fate, as he was eventually tracked down in 1995. Cor van Hout and Willem Holleder tried to flee to Paris, but their phones betrayed them. They were tracked through their calls to family members. Soon, they were surrounded. After being extradited from Paris, the gang faced their justice, but their downfall wasn't immediate. There was still more to come. In a tragic turn, Cor van Hout was assassinated in 2003, 2 decades after the crime. His death remains shrouded in mystery. Was it revenge, or the dark legacy of a life spent on the run? Either way, his story would haunt the world of crime for years. For the Heineken family, the kidnapping was a painful chapter, but it also marked the end of an era for the gang that had terrorized the Netherlands. The Heineken kidnapping remains one of the most notorious and carefully planned heists in history, a tale of cunning, betrayal, and fate. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as gripping as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling tales of true crime.